Why do I see like
All
myself
right.
and then my profile picture behind me? That's weird.
I have no clue. Um,
What have I done?
I have no clue, D. But good
I'm
morning.
floating. That's weird feeling. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Good morning, y'all. Welcome to the third of the weekly training calls. And we're all going through some slight technical things here. Dee's got herself floating. Um,
It's
and
weird.
we'll all enjoy a little bit of breakfast and talk a little training. So we got D and G with us here this morning. And then I know I've talked to a couple people that'll probably rewatch this through the week. And it looks like everybody's going pretty smooth and getting into the groove of going to different gyms and figuring out just how to do everything and how they want to participate in this too. So hopefully everybody will start posting a little bit more in the group. I know you two have some, and I know a lot of people are still preferring to send the things directly to me and sometimes aren't wanting to take too many crazy videos in gyms either. So yeah.
Going.
Um, so we'll just jump in with how's y'all's training going for this week?
Oh, law. Well, let me just say,
Yeah.
so I was in Boston. I was able to work out one day, but every other day I got about 20,000 steps in. And I mean, there was just no time every second. And, for me, I tend to go to bed 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Law, y'all, I was up until midnight every night, woke up again at 5 a.m. It was a little insane. Loved every second of it, but finding time to get that training in just wasn't as easy as I had hoped. Now, I did go one morning to the gym. I didn't get to do the 5K, but I danced more in 2 days than I have danced in 20 years. It was fabulous.
Well, that's awesome.
So I got my groove on, and I did get some heart rate up and some exercise in. It just wasn't my typical normal routine.
Yeah. Well, I mean that works too, right?
It
And
did.
yeah.
I adapted. I adapted. I pivot and adapt.
Yep. Yep. And also keeping things just in the big perspective too, in the big picture, you train very consistently all the time. And so when you do that consistently for a long time, a lot of times people have a hard time just, letting themselves do something for a week.
Yeah.
But it's not like you were, sitting on your ass watching TV and eating potato
Oh,
chips
wow.
the
No.
whole week, 20,000 steps a day. That's really just active recovery, a different type of thing, right?
No, sir. Stop it.
Yeah. It
So
was
cool.
great. It was great though.
Cool. You
And
had some good,
I did take video, but I never got it uploaded, so I apologize for that.
no,
So
that's okay. That's okay. I was mostly just putting in like a broad addressing to anybody that's maybe watching. A lot of people are still preferring to send, just an iMessage of it or put it in a shared folder or something like that. Um, so it can, I think that y'all can understand that going from even, y'all would be would have been considered for a long time one of the more outgoing groups of people, I think, in like a gym, right? I would
yeah,
say.
Oh yeah.
And,
we still are.
and yeah, absolutely. But it was still like a big step when y'all went to go compete, right? It's like mentally getting up in front of people. So
Still
Oh
is.
yeah. That was the hard part.
yeah, yeah. But then eventually you learn that um, nobody is more concerned with what you're doing than what they're doing. And if they are, then you probably don't have to be too concerned with what they're thinking.
Yeah.
So, so hopefully people get a little bit more comfortable to share all that with everybody. I think it helps everybody. Um, but yeah, um, it's still dark up here. We had about 30 deer behind the house.
Oh
I woke
wow.
up this morning. Yeah, so I'm actually the deer up here are massive too. So that's actually why I'm doing this inside again. I was going to go over to the gym and I was like, well, there's like 30 deer. I don't want to get I know deer aren't aggressive, but I didn't want to get they're massive.
Wow.
y'all know the difference in Canadian deer size?
I do not.
Well, I've seen the Canadian deer just when, I mean, I've not been through Saskatchewan, but I've seen the Canadian deer before and they are big. You know, y'all got elk and all kinds of caribou and just, I mean, they grow them big out there, Josh.
Yeah, yeah. There's I don't know if it's coyotes or wolves, but they're like off in the distance. You hear every night too, which is kind of cool to hear. They're pretty skittish. They don't come up too close to the house or anything, I don't believe, hopefully. But the deer were just all in the backyard and walking around and stuff. So I was more worried that I would startle them and then one of them would run over me.
Oh my gosh.
But
That's so cool though. What about cold wise? What's your temperature?
it's not too bad yet. It's like 30 degrees. So
Nice. I gotta get some more coffee.
not too bad. So so speaking of pivoting and adapting, talking about your training specifically moving through these next couple weeks, we had a little bit of a, oh, you're out of coffee.
That hurts.
Ah, that's why I have an espresso machine. I just run it out double shots at a time.
Oh man, that really hurt my soul.
You're gonna have to make more coffee now.
I can adapt. I can make more. I'm sorry.
That's right. Adapt and overcome. So y'all are seeing your training diverge just a little bit too, as you kind of ramp things up and get a little bit more specific, G. And as we discussed before, you kind of keeping the engine or continuing to build the engine for you, D.
Uh-huh.
So y'all can kind of see that a little bit over these last couple weeks, a little bit more probably.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So nothing that's rocket science or anything like that. But just taking, good fundamental approaches to tapering you in, making things a little bit more specific for you, Gina. Nothing, like I said, nothing rocket science there. Actually, when you're going into those periods where you can progress linearly on something, then it's, or whatever your chosen thing is for the competition, it actually becomes a little bit more simple. It's just pushing in that direction a little more. And then we're still doing a little bit more kind of like novel things so that we can bring up your engine a little bit bigger too, D. So
Yep. Yep. Well, and it's for me too, like it is just practicing these different stations, learning the technique. I kind of finally figured out the ski erg. Was that yesterday, G?
Yep.
Just kind of a rhythm. I think I finally found a rhythm in my head. Now I'm just need to tweak the speed a little bit. And that will come with time.
Yep. Once a movement clicks, then you can make it better, right?
Yeah. I
Like,
kind of clicked the movement that seemed to work. I mean, G and I watch so many different people, and obviously there's so many different techniques to all those things. You kind of do what works for you, but it's like the box over, trying to do G's way does not. I tried so many times, and it didn't work. Just the way my foot hit the box forced me to stand up. So, anyways, I'm glad you were cool with the fact that I switched it back to the way I usually do it, which seems to work. And G watched me, she's like, you're just so much faster swinging your leg from behind. And I felt so much more confident that way than trying to do it the way she was doing it. And I was trying to be G. It wasn't working.
yeah, I mean, different people are smooth in different ways, right? And
That's
so,
true.
so you can, kind of, you can come up with like a hypothetical biomechanical best for something.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, not everybody is going to fall into that. So that little bit of extra motion from your back leg is not enough to worry about when it comes down to the rhythm of it, right? Because
Exactly.
your rhythm was thrown off, and that was going to make a much bigger difference overall. Plus, that was going to take more energy from you if you're fighting a rhythm like that. So you were probably finding that you felt when you did it G's way, you probably felt like you were more tired after too.
I
That was
was.
the
And
case.
I just really couldn't get, I don't know, just couldn't get my foot across the box because that particular way puts your foot flat
Mm-hmm.
on the box. Your whole foot's on the box that way. And I can't bend that way. I can't get into a squat flat footed. Whereas when I'm swinging my leg from behind, I'm up on my toes. If that makes sense, I've analyzed it. I'm able to kind of squat lower across the box because I'm up on my toe, my heel's up. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Does that, I don't know if that made sense the way I explained it.
No, it
But
does make sense.
she flat
He-
foots across. Like when when
Yeah.
she's bringing that foot across, her whole foot is on the box. And for me, that's kind of like a narrow squat with me on my feet flat,
Right.
and I can't squat to my butt to my heels
When you're that narrow.
when I'm that narrow. But when
Yeah.
I'm swinging from behind, my toe is up, which puts my heel up, and I can squat down
Yep.
with the
And it
heel.
lets you use the hips laterally a little bit more too.
Yeah,
You
I don't know
sit
if that
and
makes
you're good wide stance. And so that's, yep. I mean, that tracks. So as far as looking at things that we can do to improve that rhythm too, then doing multiple lateral jumps would be something that we can do to just improve the coordination on that too.
okay.
So think about like Gina doing the skips.
Yeah, yeah,
So just kind of be you getting in a rhythm of like one jump right after the other on the same leg where you can absorb that force and then go to the next one. So
yeah,
we'll throw
yeah.
some of those in. Like a
Okay.
hockey jump, you just keep going one way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So we'll throw some of those in this coming week too, based off of the way you explain that.
yeah. Hopefully that
So,
made sense. I don't know if I
yeah.
explained that right.
Yep. Yep. And yours will get more specific too as you go into yours here in a couple months. But then since D's got one coming up in December,
Mm-hmm.
then hers is even more specific and will get really, really specific over these next couple weeks, which is a little bit more aggressive on the specific side than what I've done in previous preps for y'all. Um, and that's actually looking at like long-term development. So if you're thinking about how your training evolves, not just from going from normal training, trying to get fit to like now we've picked something to compete in. And then now we're going from like that general competition prep to that specific competition prep. Things have always gotten, they've always went from general to specific. But you find with a lot of things in biology, and it's no exception with this, you find this in lots of other examples of strength and conditioning stuff too, that things spiral. They don't just linearly. Sometimes they seem to spiral. Sometimes they seem to be in offset stacks.
Mhm.
Um, very rarely are they linearly. Usually, if they're linearly, it's because you've zoomed in on that little picture. If you zoom back out, you'll see some sort of usually it's like I said, either staggered trends, one way or the other, um, or you'll see other changes in the patterns. But when you go over time, you're going to see things spiral. And for y'all, you're seeing that when you get specific, we'll get a little bit more specific. And that's because you've had that time to generally develop too. So even before, whenever we were getting ready for a competition, you would switch over and you'd be much more specific. Like say going into the powerlifting meet, we did a lot of we switched over and we did a lot of stuff with the straight bar or with the regular. We would do more stuff with the straight bar on squats, little things like that to be more specific going into it. But we didn't just go super specific competition variation, squat, bench, deadlift only for those categorical movements for the last like 6 to 10 weeks. We didn't go that specific, right?
Right.
And some people would have taken out all the other weird variations of it and would have went that specific with it, other than maybe, like a little bit of assistance work, like pull apart, tricep extensions, etc. And with the DECA, for previous races we've seen before, you were probably going to get the most bang for your buck just from going all in on making the engine bigger, using the same examples we've done recently. Basically going all in on making the engine bigger for the previous ones, because we could just go for that general development and there was enough low hanging fruit there that you were able to, improve all around there, but also in a way that was going to give you the capacity to improve more long term. So when you're building that bigger engine, then every time you switch back to specific, then you can apply that and take it much further, right? So when you build that bigger engine, get a little bit more specific, we can take it a little bit further. So you're basically just able to express whatever we've been training for in the way that you're going to compete. So then now that y'all's general development is much more well-rounded, we can start pushing that harder and harder whenever we hit the gas for competitions too. So you'll notice every competition that y'all have, you'll be able to progressively get more and more specific going into it, which is a little bit counter intuitive to the way a lot of people develop for sports. So especially if we just like go all the way back and like think about, do you think about any of your kids that did sports at any point? A lot of times the way that they would do it is instead of the coach saying, oh man, like your kid is really good at this thing, but they could probably get better at this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what you should, what they probably should hypothetically do if we're talking about like a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old or something like that, is they should say, you should go play these other 1 or 2 sports, whole ass sports that make you do some of these things that you need to be better at for this sport, because then it would make a very wide developmental impact, right? You would have to learn lots of new things.
Right.
Usually what they end up doing is they give you like a very specific drill to go fix it, right?
Yeah.
And they just hyper focus on that one sport, right? So,
Yeah.
if you got a kid that comes in for basketball, then they're going to be doing basketball, and then they're going to do basketball drills, and then you're gonna, spend a couple $100 a couple weekends a year to send them to basketball skill development camps, and then you're gonna pay for a travel team, and they're gonna play basketball in the off season.
Yeah.
And
Yep. It's all true.
maybe if you're one of the more, well-rounded coaches at that level, maybe you tell them to do a little bit of strength and conditioning too, and that's great. That's going to help bridge a lot of those gaps. But looking at that as a concept, a lot of times people think, well, before you do all the fancy stuff and try to get strong and do all these other things, that you just need to get really, 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 really good at whatever you're doing. But that's actually the exact opposite.
Mhm.
So if you get really, really, really good at whatever you're doing before you get strong enough for it, then now it's like now you're able to really express every little bit of power that you can in all these super specific ways, but you're not really prepared for it. It's kind of like taking, a old VW Bug that has stock brakes on it and the stock engine, but you're going to put nitrous on it and take it to the racetrack. And so you can run it pretty fast until it blows up or until you hit the brakes and you don't have any brakes for that.
Mm-hmm.
But we kind of went focusing on that long-term progression for y'all. So as we go, we've got bigger brakes, we've got a more durable chassis, we've got everything ready to go so that we can hit the nitrous and everything stays together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And that does make sense because I
Mhm.
think so long that, I mean, I guess I don't know if we were taught or if we just learned it along the way in life. It's like, if you want to get good at one thing, just do that one thing over and over and over. But like you've said, doing that accessory work and the assistant stuff, that's what helps propel you to get better at that one thing by doing all these other things that support that one thing. So, I mean, it makes sense to me that way.
Yeah.
Well, it's like running, Gianna in our minds sometimes like, oh my God, we haven't run. We haven't, we've got to run a 5K. We haven't been out there running, but you're preparing us with all the things to be able to go on that run. We don't have to run to run.
Right.
Yeah.
All the things are preparing us for the run that we have to do.
Right. Yeah. Because it comes down to like, whenever you've got something that you want to do, just doing the thing over and over again, that does get you so much, right? Like it gets you it gets you a bit. And, if you're just doing something for fun, then, like if you don't really care about being great at tennis, but, you're on a cruise or you're on vacation somewhere and you see a bunch of people playing tennis, and you're there for a week and you're like, I'm gonna spend the week getting good at tennis, then like who gives a shit if you practice tennis every day to try to, be able to play some pickup games where you don't look ridiculous at the end of the week.
Mm.
Um, so that probably is a good way to get good at something quick. Or, even if it's a little bit more serious than that, maybe if you picked up rec league tennis and you don't really care how you did, but you're just going to play a bunch of tennis that year. But it depends on what the ends to it depends on what the thing means to you and if you want to do it for a while. Because eventually you're not going to be durable enough. Like I said, once you get good enough at something, if you haven't done the other prep work for it, then you run into some sort of wall. That's why you see a lot of runners who just run all the time have all the repetitive motion injuries in their lower body. They have, the runner's knee, their feet are screwed up. They just feel people that are putting in, 30, 50 more, or maybe even more sometimes miles a week, um, that's really unnecessary because you can train the same energy systems the same way, or even hypothetically a more efficient way, but you can take a lot less wear and tear on the body. So you can do more training overall. So when you're looking at like planning all of the training that you can within like your maximum recoverable volume, you're trying to get the best deal that you can get for that check that you're going to write.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can run 5 miles this day, but then you're trash for everything else. Well, okay. So if you're running 10-minute miles, then you could work out for 50 minutes really hard, and that's all the adaptation we can really do for your energy systems that day. And then you're probably going to need to switch to recovery stuff. Or we could do some sprints and maybe run just a little bit, do some drills that are drilling the thing that you really need to be good at, maybe, like skips and the lateral step overs and stuff like that, especially on the weeks where we've really ramped up the numbers of sets on that and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those should get pretty brutal. I mean, it's pretty hard from a conditioning standpoint, but you're getting good at something that you need to get good at too. And it's closing you into a window where you can't really go that far and that fast, so you don't really get that beat up. That's why some of the lengths of the sprints are limited too. So if you are still accelerating, then you've not reached max speed, so you're not absorbing as much eccentric energy. So you don't have as much of a chance of injury. So if you catch people when they're still in the acceleration phase of of a sprint, then you can reduce the chance of injury pretty. Which is also why sometimes people do hill sprints. We don't do a lot of hill sprints with y'all because you never plan to sprint up the hill in competition.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of other really high power stuff for you. So where that would take the place in a lot of people's programming is if maybe they're not super proficient at barbell lifts yet or anything where they can get that really high threshold of force production. So maybe they would have like a general warm up and stuff, dynamic warm up, focusing on getting ready for some running. And then they would go into some hill sprints maybe before they do their squats. They're not maybe good enough at squats to quote unquote push it hard yet. Because I think you can probably remember a time now looking back where you could push up into a weight and it felt like you were pushing as hard as you can. But now that you really know how to turn all those muscles on, you can kind of think back to when there was a sensation where it felt like you were pushing, but you couldn't push as hard as you could push.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so when you're in that kind of phase, then most likely you're not biomechanically efficient enough to really display that strength all out. So if you do something that's a little bit less technical, you can catapult people's progress too. So you can really capitalize on their ability to get those quote like newbie gains. So we did a lot of sled drags when y'all first came over too, I think, right?
We did.
Years now.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one that I use a lot of times when people are a lot of things, like I said, are cyclical. So a lot of times you find that after people get pretty well developed, then whatever was their most basic setup is their best setup once everything is sorted out too. So once everything is really well balanced, a lot of times you end up finding that, like for myself, I use lots and lots and lots of different variations on squats over the years. Um, Now that I'm pretty damn good at squats, then the number of those has really dropped back. So now maybe it's just for me now it's pretty much just barbell squats, either safety squat bar squats or Mars bar squats, front squats, and Zercher squats. And it's about it for, I mean, sometimes I'll change up, how the movement is and I'll do like weird complexes and stuff too, but I don't do as many like crazy banded and chained heavy variations as I used to do. And I don't pick as many crazy things because I've got it a little bit more balanced now. So it's kind of the same thing for y'all too. So y'all are kind of getting to that point where that's why not long before I moved, we were circled back around to doing really heavy stuff with the sled again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the reason for that little tangent there to explain that part. But when you first start training with people, you can do this too if you don't have like something like a sled or something available by using machines, so you can have the high force threshold thing there. But it's really better from an athletic perspective and for integrating it to like big barbell movements. If you can use something that's athletic, like a sled or a tank push or even push-ups and just stuff where the whole body has to brace. If you can, somebody is not very good at doing a bench press yet, then you can put them on something like a weighted push-up and really overload the eccentric on it, so you can put like a plate on their back and like let them, even if they can't do like a real push-up, they can lower themselves with the plate on their back, stuff like that. But any way that's less technical that you can get people to produce lots and lots of force, you can capitalize on being able to hit those certain force thresholds before you really have the technical proficiency to safely do it on like a more complex move. So yeah.
That's good.
So there's my rant for the morning.
Oh, that's good.
I've had a
like,
couple of them.
yeah, no, it all makes good sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
the why behind everything.
Yeah. Are y'all about to go work out this morning?
Yeah, here in a little bit.
We are. We
Yeah.
usually hit it around 8 on Saturdays.
Cool.
So it'll be a good one.
Yeah, it's cold outside, G. We gotta drag that damn box out to the front.
Yeah. We usually do all that stuff outside.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice.
It's
I tell you, it's not cold like it was in Boston. Boston, you get that wind blowing through those big buildings and stuff. Man, it'll cut you.
well,
Yeah.
that's the thing here. It's like 30 degrees, so it's not that cold, but we're on the
Yeah.
prairie, so the wind is
Oh, I
constant.
bet.
And so the other,
Block it.
yeah, well, in the city before, I've actually thought, wow, it doesn't feel quite as cold up here because the humidity is not, as high. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like it goes to your bones.
Yeah.
But now I'm on the prairie out here and the wind starts blowing and it's just like, geez, like even when it was like 40 or 50 degrees the other morning, I walked out and there wasn't even frost on the car, but the wind was just insane. So I was freezing in no time.
It's coming off those ice and glaciers and shit that a little bit north of you.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that wind is blowing. That's so cool though. That's so cool.
Yeah. We have a nice area that we've been doing our farmers walks and athletic stuff. So this morning I'm probably going to still is.
There you go.
So it gets darker. You would love it here, actually. It gets dark very early.
Yeah.
So it would be dark by your bedtime. And
Yeah.
but it would still be dark for a couple hours after you're awake too.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't
So
think I like that.
in Boston, it was getting dark at 4:30, which is, I had forgotten all that, but I remembered it real quick. And my first time ever going to that city, I came home, packed my shit, and moved. So being back there was like, I understand why I did that because it is such a cool city. It really is. And I could live there. That's one city that I could actually live in. And I mean it was really, really neat. But it does get dark early. It gets dark 4:30 there. And because it's so far east that it gets dark early and it gets light early. Just one of those
Take me
things.
to the south where it's warm and sunny.
Yeah.
That's where I want to
But
be.
I also realized why also living up there gave me such bad posture because you're doing this all the time because you're freaking freezing.
Yeah.
Shoulders all up. I'm trying to keep my shoulders down.
Yeah, I've had to invest in some big coats already.
Yeah.
Make sure I stay warm and stuff. But yeah,
But
I don't mind being cold really.
you'll see the aurora borealis and stuff when
Yep.
in winter. You'll be able to see that, right?
Well, yeah.
What's that night sky look like? Can you see the Milky Way and the stars
Yeah,
and
I'll send you
everything?
some pictures. I'll send you some pictures. You can see the Milky Way every
Yeah.
single, well, last night was the first night we couldn't see it because it was cloudy.
Yeah.
But every night we've been able to see the whole Milky Way
Yeah.
literally above our house. If we walk out and then take a picture back over top of it, it looks like the Milky Way just like sits over top of our house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Haley posted a photo, I think, and it was maybe you did too, and it was gorgeous of that sky.
Yeah.
Oh my
That
God.
night sky, man,
Yeah.
that night sky up north where there's no light pollution like that.
Oh yeah.
I dig that.
There's no farm for, well, there's one directly across the street, but nobody that actually lives at it. Um, they just rent the land out and haven't sold the house yet. But there's nobody that actually lives out here for about 3 miles that way, about 1 mile this way, and then about 2 miles in each direction.
Oh, how peaceful.
So
Right.
nice.
I
Yeah.
walked outside. This is probably TMI, and I realize I'm still recording this, but I'm going to say it anyway. But I walk outside every morning and I just like pee in the
Yeah.
yard because I can.
Nice.
Because you
Even
can't.
though it's
As you
even
can.
though it's cold, I'll walk outside every morning and I scream good morning
Yeah.
and watch all the birds take off.
Oh, I love it.
Nice.
So
That is so nice. And your gym setup's pretty sweet there, Josh.
yeah, it's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet. So whenever
Yeah.
people come visit, then they've got a good place to train with me.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, hopefully maybe Dee and I can get over to the used gym store today. We've been hoping to get there for the past month and a half and haven't made it yet. So
well,
Yeah.
yeah, y'all been busy.
see what
But
we can do here.
yeah, I'm sure Matt will give you a good deal over there.
He will.
What are y'all looking for this time? I forgot.
We're not looking for anything in particular. We're just looking, There's
Okay.
Well,
always something that we can't live without.
Well, we were looking. We talked about a box because
We've
you
talked
took the
about a
box,
box,
Josh.
yeah.
You took the box from UA, so
Yeah. Well, his
it was
dad
your
made
box.
that, Hey, did you take the sled, Josh? Is the sled still
I
there?
did not. The sled is up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sled is up there. Um, and the Prowler needs new sled tracks under it.
Yeah.
So tell Charlie to order you some sled tracks for the Prowler too. Talking
Okay.
about less technical things that are really good to get people to produce a lot of force on too. That's one that you can keep it in for everybody, but I actually do find that for intermediate people that don't have a direct application for it, when you're getting strong enough to run yourself in the ground, then you can run yourself in the ground pretty fast with a Prowler. Just because people tend to sprint with it versus walking with the sled.
Okay.
And so you can, it's also a great tool. But kind of like jumps, a lot of times people do way too much volume on it. So when you're looking at like a beginner, then you would probably want to do between 4 and 10 Prowler sprints. And I say that low of a number for 4 because if you're not in good condition, then even y'all at about at 10, if y'all are going 100%, then y'all are going to probably throw up just because you're bent over,
Yeah.
having to brace against it because it's a little bit harder to get it started than it is like the tank because it has like a little bit more of a dead start. So usually if people do about 10 sprints and they're going all out, it doesn't even matter what the weight on it is or how strong they are or anything else, they'll probably throw up. So there's really not much of a point to ever really have people do more than 10 of those unless they're just like an insane endurance athlete. If y'all were doing like ultra marathons or if y'all were planning to, do mixed martial arts and, beat the dog shit out of somebody else relentlessly for 3 to 5 minutes straight and then rest a minute and do it again, then that would be one that I would have in for you a little bit more, stuff like that and stuff like tank sprints. But otherwise, for people that are intermediate, it's more like jump volume. So about 6 to 8 is usually optimal for most people. So you don't need no double digits for programming any of that stuff.
Okay.
Usually good advice for the tank too. The tank's a little bit different because it doesn't have quite as hard of a dead start.
Yeah.
That dead start makes it a lot harder for the prowler. So
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Are you going on to a Q&A, Josh? If not, I'm going to ask the question now from something we did yesterday because we might have.
Wasn't
minute.
planned to today, but
That's
yeah.
okay.
That's December 7th, right?
Yes.
I saw that on the website. I think that's just once a month. The Q&A is just once a
I
month,
missed
right?
that one. It's okay. I just had a question with what was it yesterday? Not yesterday. No, it was yesterday. It was the overhead press with the freaking straight bar. So you had us 45, 65, 75 with 3 sets of 12. It's fucking heavy. And so G had the question, what's more important? Because it wasn't
that's right.
There wasn't an RPE there. I don't know if we make the assumption that it's always going to kind of be an 8. So was it more important for us to stay at the 65 and get the 12 or go to 75 and get what we can? We chose to stay at 65 and we got to 12 because 75, I would have never made 12. I might have gotten 5 or 6.
So I would actually say yes, as far as the RPE 8, like if there's nothing listed, like if I don't say go all out RPE 10,
yeah,
then I probably this motion light just came on.
Those deer.
Yeah, it's like
they're trying to get in.
It's like right at the porch, so it's like probably deer or cats. There's so much stuff up here. Sorry, squirrel brain. What did that?
That's okay.
What was it talking about?
What's more important, the reps, getting the reps, or getting the weight?
So honestly, from a scientific perspective, with it, as long as you're going to the roughly RPE 8, it probably doesn't make too big of a difference. In terms of like overall, for right now, because y'all are prepping for endurance related events, then I would say stick to the reps because we're progressing that direction a little bit more. So the way that y'all did it is the way I would do it. Okay. If you were prepping for a powerlifting meet, then I would say stick to the weight and let the reps auto regulate for most time.
I think we thought that way.
We did.
Yeah.
Yep. So and then to be quite honest, like I hate to say, like it sounds like a lazy answer to say it doesn't really matter that much. But if you were just training for general fitness purposes, then as long as you stuck to the RPE, then hypothetically it wouldn't really matter that much. So
okay. Yeah. It's just such a different move on that.
Also, I don't want to cut you off, but this may cut us off in just a second.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a different feel. It's a different move with that straight bar versus that fatter bar.
It is. If you can